I have a new thought to share with you when it comes to clearing resistance on the thing that you want to do, well, but you don't really want to do it, or you would have done it kind of thing. But you do. You do want to do it. Okay, so I have a new angle that we can approach this with. Let's pretend I haven't recorded a podcast episode in over 2 months because I've actually just been in deep research and development to be able to bring us this insight to the On Her Terms podcast feed. Let's pretend I did that on purpose. I have covered resistance in many ways, many angles for the last over 10 years in my business in various ways. It's likely because, as someone who identifies as a word nerd and as someone who enjoys playing with creativity and the idea of this, that's like both sides of the coin, the creator and the resistor to the creator, or creator and destroyer, really, I guess, are the opposites. But in this sense, I'm saying, like, if you're choosing to create things, you're going to sometimes have resistance. That's just part of being human. We are not ChatGPT. We are not robots. That's part of our experience. So here in the human camp, we're going to have things that we want to do that we don't really want to do. And so we have to come up with cute ways to get our brain on board, brain and body, like our actual motor actions. Okay. So I've talked about this in many angles in blog posts, and I will link to previous podcast episodes that relate and blah, blah, blah. But yesterday, speaking of robots, I was processing with ChatGPT, who is like my favorite self-coaching tool at this point. I have so many things I want to share with you about ChatGPT. A hilarious metaphor that came to me last night that I literally can't wait to get your thoughts on, but I am going to wait. It's going to be its own episode because it deserves its own episode. I'll be sharing a lot more about ChatGPT and how I'm using it, not to replace my voice. Obviously, that's really kind of important from the very get-go of my whole business, but just how to sharpen my thinking, how to talk me out of my own loops, how to apply my own coaching style to myself, and blah, blah. But last night, I was talking to ChatGPT about how I know that I want to get back to recording podcasts because I have so many things I want to share with you, and I've been saying that for so long. But 2024 for me was a lot about physical habits, and that's why my podcast episodes in 2024 were all about my field notes for what was working when it came to building a new habit and releasing some habits that I didn't want to have, but basically just recalibrating my habit dashboard. That was 2024. And I love that I did that. And I love the series. You can check it out in your podcast feed, or you can go to onherterms.com/habits, and that'll take you to a Spotify playlist of them all. I love that I did it, but it was not my usual for the On Her Terms podcast, which is usually pretty free flow. Whatever I'm thinking is, something worth noting, then I stick it in here. And so I kind of started to feel like I was painting myself into a creative corner. Shout out to my preschool that I went to and Miss Humphreys, that was Creative Corner. But I felt like I was painting myself into a corner where it was like, it has to be about habits. Now I'm on a roll here and la la, la, which is the irony of it all, because then I fell out of the habit of actually doing the podcast because I put pressure on it, and it's the On Her Terms podcast, and that's kind of antithetical to the whole thing because it's like, do what you want to do. Anyway, one of the episodes I recorded in 2024 was about the value of just breaking it down, whatever the thing is that you want to start doing. For examples, and I used this example in that episode where it was like, if you want to walk 10,000 steps, but you refuse to value walking 500 more steps in a day or 5,000 more steps in a day, it's like the all or nothing isn't helpful. It's bullseye or bust, but that's not helpful. We need a spectrum of success. That's one way to look at it, and you could think that's where I'm going with this example. It's a very similar example. It's like the fraternal twin to that example that I want to share with you in this message, which is about taking the weight off the bar. So if we're imagining a weight bench, if you've ever done a bench press, which I haven't in years, we do have a bench in our garage. No, I haven't. I haven't done a bench press like with weights on it on the bar. I think the bar itself might be 45 pounds or something, but we have a lot of weights that, like, if my husband were doing it, for example, he's got stronger upper body. He could actually bench it. But for me, I'd be like, absolutely not. I'm not even going to try at this point of my conditioning. I'm not at my peak upper body strength or whatever. And it's demotivating. It's too much. It's too heavy for me at this moment. I'm all about lifting heavy and certainly plan to do that because Nana goals. But that is not currently part of my workout plan. I'm more into Pilates right now. So anyway, just imagine the weight bench. It's too heavy. This task that you want to do, rather, the task that you want to have done, just feels too heavy. So we're not just talking about looking at it from big to small and breaking it down into a tiny, tiny, whiny step. We're talking about the weight of it. If it feels heavy, like there's just too much involved, for me, in this example, it was about recording the podcast. I love recording the podcast. I've shared this in many other messages before that whenever I'm actually recording this, I feel very alive. And the best description I can think of is whenever I plug my laptop in back to its charger and the screen gets a little brighter. That's how I feel when I'm recording a podcast, for example. It's something that makes me feel sparky. And so I love this part. So then why am I resisting it? And I start to kind of gaslight myself. Well, maybe I don't love it. If I'm not doing it, then maybe I don't love it. Maybe it's not actually a high value activity, blah, blah, blah. But that's BS. It is. It's just there are too many weights on the bar. Like say that's the bar, that's the minimum. That's the one thing that actually matters, the bare mini task. But I have other weights on the bar that are making it feel impossible right now. Like uploading it, creating a show notes page, which don't get me wrong, I love that now we have a show notes page because for years the podcast existed only in podcast players and not in show notes pages on onherterms.com. But now, thanks to lovely team and tech support last year, we have an archive of the first 90 plus episodes of this podcast that you can go to at onherterms.com/archive. I love that the show notes pages exist, but I don't love making them. That's not my favorite. My energy starts to go down when I'm doing the techie pieces. And yes, I can, like I just said, I can hire help with that, and I have. But when it's like onesie twosies, I'm like, but it's pretty easy and I can do that and it's no big deal. And I do want the show notes to be available for you if I have other links to share and blah, blah, blah. But I just start to feel like recording it also means I need to do the show notes and I need to create the page on the website, upload it to Hello Audio, which I love, and it's a very easy process to do that. But it's techie things on the screen and on the computer that it's not as fun for me as recording this in my closet for you right now. For you and for me, always. Um, so yesterday, ChatGPT and I were processing it, and we were like, "Oh, right, that's the deal because you are making it a whole honking thing with this whole domino rally effect. In reality, just record. And also, what if you record and you don't even have to share it? You just want to build the habit of recording again." And I was like, "Right, exactly. That's what I want to do." So 2025, my in case you're curious, my internal focus is more on my creative habits and my mental habits, which are one and the same because I have so many ideas. And I know I've said this many times. I mean, I've already said it in this episode that I have so many ideas that I want to share. And one of my habits is like to create, to create, to create, not just to keep it in the loop over here because I'm absolutely hoarding and I can barely see my front door, mentally speaking, because I just have stacks and stacks and stacks of notebooks and half baked workshop ideas that I know you'll enjoy if I could just, you know, build the momentum and do the reps to actually put these things out into the world in a usable format, such as a podcast episode, starting with this. So that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm sharing it with you in a meta way, like I said, because I know I'm not, I mean, if you're listening to this, you're likely also a creative person or you identify, I think everyone is creative, right, in our own forms, but I'm sure you faced resistance on something. I mean, it could even be like going through your kids' closets and moving their clothes out to the next size, you know, like getting rid of the clothes that are too small or something like that. It could be a task that's a home task, something for the family that you need to do that you're like, I don't want to do it because I don't want to think about where they need to go to Goodwill or wherever we're donating them. And it's like, okay, but what if it didn't have to be all that? It was literally just about going in and figuring out the clothes that don't fit anymore. And you don't have to do anything with all the rest of them yet, you know? It's probably not a great example because really what's worse than decluttering when you declutter and then you just have to stare at everything by your front door because you haven't actually made decisions about where it goes. That's not fun. So maybe that's a bad example, but hopefully there's something in here that's going to help you shake it loose and you think about, oh, right, okay, I do actually genuinely love doing that thing, but right now I'm pretending like it has baggage It has all this extra weight and all of those other things that are attached to it. My friend Jada and I describe this as if you give a mouse a cookie and it's like, I did this one thing, and then now I realize, oh, but I also need to do that. And if I do that, then I need to do this. And if I do that, then I need to do this. And that can just spiral and your energy can drop real fast. Sometimes that's fun. Sometimes that's a fun mode to be in, and sometimes it's not. And it's just like, the clown handkerchief that just goes on and on and on. And you're like, wait a second, this was supposed to be fun. This was something that was energizing. And again, sometimes that stuff needs to get done, but maybe it's going to be done on a different day. And you have a plan for that. You do some body doubling, co-working, music, make it a vibe for yourself. But for now, it's just like, how can you break the seal, pop the cork on the one thing that is the thing without all the pressure and the weight of all the other things that you know are going to come in time on the other side of it. It's like all we got to do is just kind of sneak past the Mission Impossible laser beams that are like, no, you can't start doing that because if you start doing that, you're going to have to do this. Blah, 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 blah. And it just takes all the fun out of it. And we never get to experience the feeling of doing the thing that we know we want to do. Okay, that's the angle. I will be back with so many more things to share. I say that about the series, but then I kind of doodled out a whole series on ChatGPT stuff. So we'll see. We'll see how it comes out. But in the meantime, there are 90 something episodes for you to be checking out here and tuning back into if you're listening to this one. I would love to hear from you after you listen to this episode and any and all episodes. So hit the link in the comment box wherever you see it or take a screenshot. I don't keep Instagram on my phone at this point, but I do check it on my desktop every now and then because I do love it for real, sis, and checking independent news sources and things. So, okay. I hope that was helpful to you. Thank you, because it's definitely been helpful to me. Thanks for listening, and thanks for spending part of your day with me. I'll be back soon. Take care over there. Okay, technically that was the end of the episode, but since you're still here, one, I'd love to thank you for spending part of your day with me, and two, I'd love to ask you if you would take 30 seconds, maybe 60, to leave a rating and review in your podcast app before you tap out today. If you've already done that, it's amazing. Please send me a screenshot so I can thank you personally, and know that sharing this episode with a friend has the same magical powers, and I deeply appreciate both. Also, in case you're listening to the end to see if I ever actually introduce myself, hi! My name is Nikki Elledge Brown. I'm the host and author of Naptime Empires and this here On Her Terms podcast. You can find me around the internet at Nikki Elledge Brown in most places, but what you may appreciate most is actually over at onherterms.com. It's what I call the insider library. It's where you can get inside scoop, first listen rights, email updates every time there's a new episode, and then special insider only bonus content. It's all over in our private feed. Okay, that's a wrap for real. I'll meet you in the next episode.